everyone, it's Elena and I'm back with another video. And just before anybody points it out to me in the comments, yes, I do know that there's kind of a white dot on my nose, and that's because I fell and it really hurts. And I don't know why, but apparently blue and red undertones make your makeup seem a lot lighter. I don't know, but that's why my nose looks pretty weird today. But trust me, it looks a lot better than it does without makeup, because it looks pretty bad and I'm just hoping that it's not gonna scar. So yeah, that's why I have a white dot. But today we're actually going to talk about a really important topic, so please just ignore my white dot, because it's actually really important to talk about academic failure. Because everybody fails at some point or another at the time, in university, in high school, or you know, whatever setting you're in, at some point you are gonna fail. And it's really part of the process. And yes, everybody always tells you it is normal to fail, but we all know that when we do fail, we really hate it. And today I wanted to talk to you guys about how to deal with that. Now, before we get into it, I do just want to say that failure is something that is proportional to how much work you put in and the expectations you put on yourself. And I think it's really important that, you know, if you feel like you failed at something, that you allow yourself to feel that failure. Just because somebody else would be really happy about a B+, if you worked 3 weeks in advance for that test and you really wanted to get an A, then you are allowed to be disappointed about a B+, and you are allowed to feel like it's a failure. And I think that's something that's really important, because often students who, you know, do pretty well but then they actually feel like they wanted to do better, feel like they can't really, you know, feel bad about it, because everybody else will be really happy about it. I know this is something that happened to me a lot back when I was in high school, because I'm somebody who puts very high expectations on herself. And you know, when I would get something like, for example, a B-, I would be really disappointed, and then I'd go home and my mom would be like, oh, so how did that test go? And I'd be like, oh, I got a B-, and my mom would be like, girl, like, you know, get a reality check. And like, on a rational level, I did know that a B-, you know, wasn't bad, but just in proportion to the work that I put in, it actually was pretty bad. So I do think, you know, whether other people would be happy about the grades or, you know, whatever you're achieving or not, it doesn't matter, because if you're not happy with it, then, you know, you gotta allow yourself to feel that in order to get over it. So it's no solution to just say, okay, someone else would be happy with what I'm having, so I should be happy. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, let's actually get into how to overcome academic failure when it happens. Okay, step 1 for getting over it is allow yourself to cry. You know, give yourself some time and just let your emotions out. You know, give yourself some time to bathe in your misery, to say so. So whether that's by crying, screaming, punching a pillow, whatever it is, but you know, really allow yourself to feel these things. You can't get over it if you don't allow yourself to feel it, okay? It's not normal to be upset about something and, you know, not show any emotion, okay? We are not built like that. So it's normal to just, you know, have these like emotional hours or minutes, like however long it takes. And you know, depending on how big a deal it is, give yourself about an hour to a few days to, you know, just feel it. And it's really okay to be miserable for a bit, okay? If you're disappointed about something because you worked really hard for it and it just didn't work out, then you are allowed to be upset. So do actually feel these emotions and, you know, bathe in your misery for a little bit, because we all need to do that. And it can be quite comforting to just, you know, have a good cry. It sounds silly, but it actually helps, like just letting it out. And I think it's really important to do that, because otherwise, you know, you can't move on to the next step, because you actually need to have felt that failure in order to then, you know, deal with it. And while you're in this really emotional phase, one thing that I would recommend is to record these moments. You know, you don't need to record all of it, but I would really recommend recording a little bit of it at least. Because I think it's really important to record your setbacks and your failures, because you can then look back at them in the future, and it kind of also puts future setbacks into perspective, and it reminds you of all the things that you have managed to get over and that, you know, you've managed to grow out of. And I think that's really important. And it's important to, you know, remind yourself a few months down the road, look, I thought the world was ending that day, but actually I got up the next day and the next day after that, and 3 weeks from that, and then it actually really didn't matter anymore. You can do this by taking a video, you know, just a couple seconds, you know, just explaining to yourself, this is what I'm going through right now, this is how I'm feeling about it. and that's it, you know? Or, you know, take a few pictures if you're somebody who prefers to do that, or write it down in your diary, whatever it is, but record it. Have a record of it so that, you know, you can look back at it, because at some point you're gonna fail again. That's inevitable, okay? But then you can look back at all these other failures you actually went through, and honestly, it's really empowering to have these records. I have a few videos of me crying, and honestly, I look at some of them today and I'm like, girl, like, this was no big deal. But honestly, in that moment, it really was. And although maybe today I wouldn't cry about the same thing, it's still really important for me to see that, you know, I thought this was such a big deal, and now I'm 19 and it really doesn't matter anymore, and I really don't care. But you know, things like that are gonna happen to you all the time. And just, you know, seeing that you got through these things and that today they really don't matter anymore, it really helps, because when something like it happens to you now, you're like, I remember I went through something similar, but you know what? I remember it, and I know it's not gonna matter 5 years down the road, so I'm not gonna waste my time with it. So that's why I would really recommend keeping a record. It feels dumb to film yourself crying because you look like crap and you really don't want anyone else to see that. You know, if you want to, put it in a password protected folder, but have it. Have some record. Believe me, you're gonna thank me. Okay, once you've given yourself enough time to bathe in your misery and you've recorded your horrible emotions, now it's actually time to move on. So, first step, ask yourself why you failed. Okay, really ask. Ask, what is it that made me not be good enough? And sometimes the answer is going to be really not satisfying, because sometimes it's going to be something that was out of your control, or there's just no way of knowing. A good example here is university admissions, especially in the US, because very often you just can't know what was the factor that, you know, made them not choose you but choose someone else. And very often you really can't tell. And as somebody who went through this process last year, I can tell you that when I got rejected from my dream school, I was like, oh my god, like, why? And I've put so much effort into my application, and you know, I've worked really hard since I was in about 7th grade because I wanted to get to university like that, and then I got rejected, and honestly it hurt a lot. And I was actually looking for a mistake, you know, in my application or like in the things I did, why I wasn't good enough. And then I looked at all the other applications and I just didn't feel good about them anymore. Like, even the schools I got into, I was like, yeah, like, I got into this school, but I didn't get into my dream school. This was the school that mattered. And the irony is I actually got into a better school, like a more competitive school. But I couldn't really appreciate that in that moment because I was so focused on, you know, having gotten rejected from my dream school. And in all honesty, today I think that was really dumb because I wasn't very happy about my achievement, although I actually had done pretty well. Like, I mean, I ended up at a great university. It wasn't a university I planned to go to, in all honesty, but honestly I ended up in a great place. But at that moment I felt like I had failed miserably and I couldn't tell why. And those are the things where you just gotta say, well, there was something, maybe there just was someone better, but you can't tell. But you know, other times you will be able to tell why you failed. For example, if you really wanted that A in a math test, but you only put 10 hours of work into it, you probably didn't want it badly enough because you probably didn't work hard enough for it. For some people, they can revise an hour for maths and they'll be fine, okay? But other people, you know, they need more time. And if you weren't realistic about how much time you need, then that is something you've learned. So you're not gonna make that mistake again, because very often we can actually improve. Or, you know, maybe you got rejected and then you can look back at your application and be like, okay, maybe I could have worked harder in this subject. So I'm gonna take this as a lesson, and you know, the next time I really want something, I'm gonna work a little bit harder in the things that I'm not as good in. And you know, things like that. Sometimes we can improve, and sometimes we can realize why something may not have worked out, and we can take it as a lesson to just, you know, improve ourselves. Those opportunities that we wanted, they may not come around again, but other opportunities are gonna come around. So we can still take lessons from these and, you know, improve so that when there is a new thing that we want, we are better and we are in a better position to get it. Now, once you know why you failed, then actually make a plan to not fail like that again, okay? So if you know this was the reason this thing didn't work out, then make a plan to do better. A good example here is, once again, university admissions. Now, in the UK, when you apply to universities, you get a conditional offer, and it is conditional on your A-level results. And every year, quite a few students miss their conditional offers. And I can understand that it can be really, really disappointing if you don't get into the university you wanted to go to. Now, luckily in the UK, there is a backup system, so you can have an insurance choice in case it doesn't work out with your first choice. And you know, then you may end up going to this safety school which you didn't really want to go to because it just didn't work out with your grades. And you know, now you have a choice. You can either spend the next 3 years being miserable and, you know, thinking, oh my god, I really don't want to be here. Or you can spend the next 3 years making the best of it, getting better grades than you did in A-levels, and then getting into a great grad school or getting the job you really want, whatever it is. You know, it's your choice what you make out of it. So if you realize, okay, maybe I didn't work hard enough in A-levels to get what I want back then, but I can work hard enough now in university to get what I want after university. And that's why I think it's really important to reflect on why you failed and to then use that to make a plan and then follow that plan, because then you'll make sure that you won't fail like that again. Because the thing that's even more annoying than just failing is failing for the same reason for which you failed another time. Because you already knew that you had to improve this and you just didn't do anything about it. And yeah, that's really my strategy for dealing with academic failure. Because when you follow that plan, you know, at some point you're gonna wake up and you're not gonna think about that time you failed anymore, you know? And when somebody mentions it at that point, it's just not gonna hurt anymore. And that can take a few days or maybe just a few hours, but it can also take years for some people, depending on, you know, what it is and how much it meant to you. And it's absolutely fine to take your time to get over it, but I think a great way to do it is to make a plan to actually, you know, have something in place to then, you know, at least learn from that failure. So yeah, I hope you guys found this video helpful, and thank you guys so much for watching. Have a nice day. Bye!